this morning on our mats in our comfortable seated position. We'll feel our sitting bones rooting down into our mats. We'll close our eyes. We'll just soften a little bit here. Let the shoulders melt down away from our ears. Feel our breath coming in, our lungs and ribs expanding, our diaphragm pushing that breath down into our belly. And then let's just take a few moments to check in with how we are feeling right now. To maybe set an intention for our practice today. Make sure that we're letting go of any judgment that we may have of ourselves. And remind ourselves that yoga is not always necessarily about the end result or the pose that we end up in, but maybe the journey that we take as we go there. Feeling the connection that we have made with our bodies as we move around today. Noticing little bits and pieces, maybe things that we need to work a little bit more on, or noticing some of the gains that we have made as we have been practicing all of these days together. We'll inhale and lift our hands up to the sky, opening the fingers wide, lowering the shoulders away from our ears, breathing into the belly. Active core here to support the spine. Reaching with the fingers, pressing into the mats with our sitting bones. And then exhale, we'll just bring those hands and our chests forward into a little forward fold. Lower our head round in our spine and help ourselves back up to the top. Hands come up high. And then again, exhale, folding forward. Keeping our chest low, let's walk our hands around over to the right, bringing our chest over that right knee. And then we'll come back to the center for one full breath cycle. And then when we're ready, walking those hands around to the left. And then coming on back to the center. We'll just creepy crawl those fingers forward, roll over our shins, coming onto our hands and our knees, into our tabletop. Fingers are wide, pressing each little digit into our mats, opening our shoulders behind us, tilting that pelvis just a little bit so that we have a nice, long, straight spine. Little bit of grounding here into our hands, into our knees. And then exhale, let's round that spine. Tuck the chin, tuck the tail. And then inhale, arching, dropping the tummy, lifting the heart. And then exhaling, rounding. And inhaling, arching. Do this a few times with our breath. Let's do one more cat and one more cow. And then we'll find ourselves back in that neutral spine. Soften those feet. We'll come back to a child's pose. Arms come out in front of us. Hips are back. Chests are low. And then let's inhale up to a little plank. Tuck the tail. Lengthen from our knees all the way to the top of the head. And then exhale, we'll lower ourselves down. Hands are underneath of our shoulders. Inhale, let's scoop that chest forward and up. And then press back, child's pose. Good. Inhale, up to a little plank. Exhale, we'll lower down. Inhale, scoop. And exhale, pressing back. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, come up. Exhale, we lower down. And we'll scoop and press back. Last time. And meet our together back in our child's pose. Hips are low, shoulders are soft. And we'll tuck those toes underneath of our butts. Stretch out those ankles and our feet, our toeses. And then pressing into those hands, pulling our shoulders back away from the wrists, away from the ears. Breathing into that tummy. Feel the activation as we press our tummy into our thighs. Pressing into our toes. When we're ready, we'll lift those hips up toward the sky for downward facing dog. Bending the knees as needed. Pedal the feet a little bit. Wake up the backs of our legs. Good. And now let's inhale. Bring our shoulders forward. We'll bend those knees. Barely touch the knees down to our mats. And then press back into our downward facing dog. Good. Inhaling, coming forward, bending the knees. barely touching. And then back to our downward facing dog. Again, hinging at the hips and at the shoulders, keeping our backs nice and strong. We touch, feel our strength throughout our whole body, our connection with the earth, pressing back, downward facing dog. And then bending the knees, looking forward, past our hands, stepping or hopping to the top of our mat into a forward fold. Good. Let's bend our knees enough so that our hands can find the mat. We'll keep this left knee bent very, very deeply. Left hand will stay on the floor. And then we'll begin to lengthen in this right leg. Reach the right hand up to the sky. Little IT band stretch here. Good. And lowering back down, bending both knees. And then over to the other side, right knee, right hand. Our right hand is down on the floor, right knee is bent, and then left leg begins to lengthen. Think about lifting that hip up to the sky, reaching with the fingers. And then coming on back down to our forward fold. Those hands can just release. We can hang for a breath or two. And then bending the knees, rounding in the spine. Slowly, slowly, slowly. We'll roll our way up. Finding our Tadasana. Hands are pointed out in front of us. Fingers are reaching down to our mats, pressing into our feet, lifting from the top of the head. Good. Inhale. Let's raise those hands up to the sky. And then exhale, folding forward. Inhale to a flat back here, lengthening in the legs, in the back. Exhale, we'll fold, stepping back with that left leg into a lunge. Wiggle our way into it. Take a breath. Good. Let's raise up the right hand. Little twist here. And exhaling back down. Let's step back for downward facing dog. And now let's inhale forward all the way to a plank. Exhale, shifting our weight forward and then lowering down. We can come up to a little cobra, or we can come all the way to upward facing dog. Tuck the toes, press into those hands, lift the hips for downward facing dog. Looking forward, bending the knees, stepping or jumping to the top of our mat. Inhale to a flat back. Exhale, we'll fold. Inhaling, rolling our way up. Hands come all the way up to the sky. And now exhale, little back bend here, bringing the hands back behind us, lifting the heart, hips come forward. and then back up to the top. And now let's sit down into our chair, bringing our thighs together, sitting low with our butts, lifting our hearts. Good. Inhale. Let's come all the way up to the sky. And then exhale, folding forward. Inhale to a flat back. Exhale, folding. We'll step back with that right leg into our lunge. Good. Little twist here, lifting the left hand. And then exhale back down. Stepping back, downward facing dog. Inhale, coming forward to our plank. Exhale, lowering down. Inhale, cobra or upward facing dog. Tucking the toes, lifting the hips for down dog. Good. Bending the knees, looking forward, stepping or floating to the top of our mat. Inhale to a flat back. Exhale, we fold. And then inhale, rolling our way up. And exhale, hands come down to our sides into Tadasana. Good. Let's bring those hands out in front of us, reaching forward those fingers, keeping those hips facing out in front of us. We're just going to take those hands around to the left. Hands and shoulders only, keeping this left hip from wanting to come to. And then back to the center. And then exhaling to the right. And back to the center. Inhaling, lifting high. And then exhale, let's fold forward, bending the knees deeply. Inhale, long legs, flat back. Exhale, we'll fold. Left leg will go back for our lunge. Let's come up to our high lunge. And then exhale, we'll come back down. Good. Stepping back, downward facing dog. Inhale, coming forward. Exhale, we'll lower down. Inhale, cobra or upward facing dog. And now this time, exhale, let's go all the way back down to our tummies. Hands are underneath of our shoulders. Toes are tucked underneath of us. Let's press up to a plank again. Good job. Everything comes over to the right side. Let's lift up the left for side plank. Lowering that left hand back down to the mat. Let's press back, downward facing dog. Good. Let's lift up that right leg. And we'll step forward into a lunge again. Good. And now from here, we're going to hop this left foot forward just a little bit, and we'll come up into warrior one. Pulling that left hip forward, right hip goes back so that both of the hips are facing forward, bending the right knee, pressing into that left heel, And now trying not to arch in that low back. And as we tuck that tail, should feel maybe a little bit of opening in that left hip. Good, let's bring those hands to our hearts, lengthen in the right leg. Both hips are facing forward. We're going to hinge at the hips. Hands can come to our thigh. We can keep them on our hips to see where they're going. We can walk the hands down to our shin. Maybe we can get to the floor, to our toes. Good, and now let's bend that right knee again. Hands find the floor. And then we'll step forward with the left. Find our fold. Inhale to a flat back. Exhale, we'll fold. Inhale, rolling our way up. Good. Exhale, little back bend here. Inhaling up. Exhale, let's sit down into that chair. Strong chair. Good. Inhaling up. Exhale, let's fold forward. Inhale to our flat back. Exhale, we'll fold, stepping back with that right leg into our lunge. Good. Inhale to our high lunge. And exhaling down. Stepping back, downward facing dog. Inhaling forward. Exhale, we lower. Inhale to a heart opener. And then back down to our tummies. Keep those toes tucked. Start to activate in the thighs, into the core, pressing into the hands for our plank. Good, and now shifting over to the left side, lifting up the right for side plank. If this is tough on us, or even tough on the wrist, we can lower that inside leg, the left leg, if we need. And now lowering back, and then downward facing dog. Good, let's lift up that left leg back behind us, three-legged dog. And we'll step forward into our lunge. Little hop with the right foot. We'll come up for warrior one. So thinking about this right hip coming forward, bending in the left knee, tilting that pelvis as if we're pulling up the front of our pants. Trousers or pants. Good. And now let's bring our hands to our hearts. Lengthen in that left leg. Still find those hips pointing forward, hinging at the hips as we keep the back relatively flat as we come forward for pyramid. Good, and now let's bend that left knee. Hands can find the mat, stepping forward with the right into our forward fold. Inhale to a flat back. Exhale, let's fold. Bending the knees, rounding as we rise up. Good, let's bring our hands down to our hearts, pressing into that right foot. I'm gonna lift the left foot and step all the way back to a high lunge. Good, keeping our hands praying together, nice and strong, keeping the shoulders back, sinking down into that lunge. Let's take this left elbow all the way around to that right knee or thigh. Good, and then we'll gently come back to the center. Find that high lunge again. We're gonna begin to shift all of our weight into our right foot. Come up, bringing the knee in towards our chest. Good, and then exhale. Let's bring that left leg back behind us for warrior three. Hands can stay at our hearts. We can bring them out in front of us. Woo. Can come out airplane arms. Reach them back. It's very difficult to do all of those while balancing. Good, and then gently let's bring that left knee back in front of us. Hands come to our hearts. And now let's open up that knee and find our way into tree. Lots of balancing, lots of balancing. If we fall out, we just come back into it. Very windy in here today. Good, releasing that foot, placing it back down onto our mats. Inhale, lifting the hands up high. It's always good to challenge ourselves. Exhaling, folding forward. Inhale to a flat back. Exhale, we fold, stepping back, downward facing dog. Good, inhale, let's come forward to a plank. Strong plank. Exhale, let's lower down. Inhale, cobra or upward facing dog. And then back down to our bellies. Hands are underneath of our shoulders. We tuck those toes, pressing up into a plank. And let's come on over to side plank again. Opening up to the left, lifting the left hand up to the sky. And exhaling back down, regular plank. And then downward facing dog. Good. Let's lift up that right leg, stepping forward into our lunge. Good. Coming up, warrior two. Lowering that left heel down to the mat. Bending the right knee. Good, and now let's lengthen that right leg, shift our hips over behind us, reach forward with the right hand, and then come into triangle. About pulling the hips all the way back behind us to lengthen in this right leg. Hopefully we'll feel some good inner thigh and hamstring love. It's love. Good, and let's bring both of those hands back down to the mat, bending that right knee, stepping forward with the left into a fold. Take a couple of breaths here, just hang. You can sway side to side, a little ragdoll. Good, and then releasing our elbows if we have held on to them, bending the knees, roll our way up. Reaching high. Good, and now let's place those hands together, pressing nice and strong, bringing them down to our hearts, pulling the shoulders back, lifting the hearts, and we'll step back with this right leg all the way back to our high lunge. Second side isn't so hard because we know what's coming. So let's take that right elbow all the way around to the left knee. Keep sinking down into that lunge. Open up our shoulders, using that pressure in our hands to help open up those shoulders, get into that twist. Good, and then we'll slowly come back to the center. We'll shift into this left leg and begin to lift that right knee up in towards our chest. Find our balance here. And then when we're ready, let's take that right leg back behind us for warrior three. We'll slowly bring that knee back in towards our chest. Beautiful job. This is really hard. Good. And then we'll open it up to the side for tree. We can place that foot into our thigh or to our calf. Beautiful. And then let's gently release that foot and we'll come back down. Inhale up. Beautiful. Exhale, let's fold forward. Inhale to a flat back. Exhale, we fold. We'll step back into our downward facing dog. Beautiful job, guys. Inhale forward to our plank. Exhale, we'll lower down. Inhale, open up that heart, lifting it. And then lowering it back down, tucking the toes, pressing into the hands, coming up into our plank, strong plank. Beautiful. And now let's just go on over to side plank, lifting the right hand Lifting the hips, stacking the shoulders. Beautiful. And slowly we'll come back down. Downward facing dog. Lift up that left leg. And we'll step forward into our lunge. Good. Open up, warrior two. Good. And now let's lengthen that left leg. Shift our hips over to the right. Back behind us. We'll reach forward with the left, creating lots of length in the leg, in our ribs. And then we'll come down into triangle pose here. Micro adjustments with those hips. Keep moving them back behind. Keep lengthening inside this left leg. Pressing into both feet for our balance, lifting our heart. Beautiful job. Let's bend that knee. We'll come back down. Step forward. Little ragdoll here. Good. Let's bend the knees really, really deeply. Our hands can find the floor. And we'll open up our feet, heel toe, and point those toes out towards the corners of our mat. And we'll lower ourselves down into a malasana squat. Low squat. High hearts. And let's lower that right hand down to the floor on the inside of the leg. And we'll lift up the left. Little twist here. If you would like to try a bind today, we can take this left hand, reach it back behind, right arm stays inside the leg, and then bends and comes around our leg. See if we can grab our hands together. All of this while not falling over. And if you fall over, we're not that far away from the ground. Hopefully it doesn't hurt. Gently release, come back to the center. Take a big breath here. Let it out. Inhale, we'll lengthen in that spine. Exhale, we'll lower the left hand down. We'll reach with the right. And again, if you would like to try that bind, we can take the right hand back behind. Left hand comes around the leg as if we're hugging that knee in toward our armpit. And then we'll release. Whew. Hands can come down to the mat. We'll wiggle the fingers forward, lower our knees down to our mat, swish the feet over, and we'll find ourselves onto our butts. Whew. Give those legs a bit of a wiggle. Good. And now, let's bring the soles of our feet together, kind of far away from our body in for a little bit of a fold here. So now we're making a nice long diamond in front of us. We'll keep our chests forward, back straight. As we lower our way down, we can hold on to our toes, or we can reach out in front of us. Then we'll slowly help ourselves up. We'll extend this left leg out. Bring the right leg in for our Janu Shirshasana right here. Get those sitting bones underneath of us. We'll point the left toes up to the sky. We'll turn toward that left leg. Inhale, hands come up high. And then exhale, let's fold forward here. We can walk our way down. We can find ourselves to our shin. Maybe we can get to the toes. We can always use a strap or like a dish towel if that helps us. And now let's just release our leg. We'll bring our hands to the inside and we'll walk our way to the center. And begin to use that breath. Creepy crawl those fingers forward. We'll fold toward the center for a few breaths. And now keeping our chest low, let's just continue on. We'll just walk our way around toward that right leg. And then we'll help ourselves all the way up. We'll unwind. And then we'll take this right hand and we'll press it back behind us, right behind our butt. We'll begin to press into our foot and into our shin, and we'll lift our hips up into Stargazer Pose. Lifting our left hand up and over our head, lengthening from our toes to our fingers, opening up the chest. See if we can open that chest up toward the sky. Think if this pose is just like a hello world. And then we'll exhale, lower ourselves back down. Bring our knees together. Give ourselves a breath or two here. And we'll move on over to the other side, extending the right leg out, tucking the left in toward the thigh. Find those sitting bones. Give ourselves all of the wiggles that we need to get right exactly where we want to be. And then we'll turn toward that right leg. And we'll just slowly, we can walk our way down, Or we can lift our hands up to the sky, make a big rainbow with those fingers. And then we'll release that right leg. Both hands come to the inside, and we'll just slowly walk our way around to the center. Our breath can be our biggest asset when we're in some of these poses. We just concentrate on that breath instead of on the struggle. Now let's keep our chests low, and we'll begin to continue on walking around to that left side. We'll slowly help ourselves up. We'll unwind. Bring this left hand back behind us. Open up that chest nice and wide. Press into the shin and to the foot, and swoop that right hand up and over, lifting the hips. And then we'll gently lower ourselves back down. Bring our legs in toward our chest. Roll up into our ball and rock onto our backs. Hug those knees into our chest. Roll up into our little egg. Tuck our chin in towards our knees. And then we'll lift our hands and our feet up to the sky. Reaching with the fingers, pressing with those feet. We can wiggle the fingers and the toes, can roll around in the ankles and the wrists. And then we'll slowly exhale them down to our mats, reaching above our heads with our hands, lengthening in the legs. making ourselves really, really, really long. And then one last big, complete exhale. Release everything. Let go of all of the tension. Close our eyes. We'll give ourselves this time to rest. start to come back into our space, deepening our breath, and gentle movement into our body. We'll hug our knees into our chest and roll over onto our side. Slowly help ourselves up to seated. Check in with ourselves. See how we're feeling now after our practice, after our little yogi nap. Take a moment to really hold on to that feeling of groundedness, the balance, the peace, and the warmth that we've built within us. See if we can carry that on through the rest of our day. And we'll bring our hands together at our hearts, lower our heads, and give ourselves thanks for all of the gifts that we just gave us. I thank you so, so much for joining me today and every day. This year has been not perfect. It has had some ups, it has had some downs, it has had some sideways zigzaggies, but I will say that, it has not been boring. I wish you all a very, very happy rest of your day. And I hope you feel my appreciation and my love as I'm sending it through to you. The light in the divine in me recognizes and respects the light in the divine in each of you. And when we are together, whether physically or virtually, we are one. Namaste.